going to take a macro view of this. By the year 2050, 66% of the world's population are going to inhabit cities. If you boil down the human criteria to one word for me, that would be inclusion. And the innate desire for every human to not feel alone. And a city is not built by bricks and stones. And yes, we need to do so many different things to make our cities more livable, the air cleaner, the water purer. But on a very emotional level, cities are built from memory, shared experience, and history. And what we are doing to our cities all the time is we are stripping them, we are creating them bereft of the memory and the intangible thoughts that make them worth living. And a city has to be inclusive of gender, which means all of us here know that it's something that in the past decade has made so much reverberation. I sit here today in a very privileged position. My grandmother, and probably a lot of yours, did not have the education, they did not have the light shine upon them to make their voice heard. So gender is a very important criteria. So is ability and the lack of it. People who don't have the able-bodiedness that we do to be able to access cities in a way that they should be allowed to. Their story and everyone's story must be part of the context of the city. If you read a chapter which does not contain the story of inclusivity, that city and that story is not worth reading. So, to begin with, I think that panel discussions are wonderful, and while we're all analysts, I think we need to be activists. We need to make that shift and say, this is the problem, and this is what we need to do about it. Hope exists only when there's action. And also, I might say that we talked today about the emotional quotient in our cities and how to better various aspects of life when we, I think, are being rather self-indulgent as we sit on the brink of an existential crisis. Over the past 25 years, we've depleted the Earth's resources and put more carbon emissions in the air than any other time in history. And in the next 25 years, it's incumbent upon all of us sitting here and everyone out there to reverse that. I want my child, who's 6, to inherit a planet where he doesn't have to turn around and say, why did you not do what you should have at the only time in the history of the universe that you could have? So now coming back to inclusivity and the craftsmen, these are the people who are part of the 6th mass extinction. We talk about 200 species a day going extinct. They are part of that, make it 201. They call me from all over the country saying, "Kaam nahi hai." The last time, before I left the country 2 weeks ago, I got a call because he was so desperate from his wife, who had been hospitalized with diabetes, and her trembling and extremely vulnerable voice called out to me saying, "I don't want to make this call, but we have no work." It took me 15 minutes to recover from the emotional onslaught of that. And these are the most talented people whose craft has come down centuries. While we look at the rest of the world in awe, people who have exquisiteness to offer the rest of the world are languishing. So our cities need to be inclusive of their art. They need to display them, they need to celebrate them, and they need to create a dialogue with them, which means Made in India has to be something coveted the world over. Also, in terms of gender, I think equality is about having freedom. And not the freedom to say that I am better or I need to ask for what I want, but that it is given to you by virtue of your voice and what you have to say. And that room has to be given to the woman of today. And I believe that while times are changing, I sit here on behalf of a whole ecology of women, not less competent than me, not less intellectual, not less worthy, but purely for the lack of opportunity. And I say to every woman that we don't need the men to support us. The men are a benign community. We need to support each other.